Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call to order our October 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Pickens County Council. I want to thank everyone for being here with us tonight as we do the business of the county. We hope that everyone will be respectful and civil as we make our way through our long agenda this evening. We'll start off by invocation and our pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord and our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight to do the business of Pickens County. We pray that you give us wisdom and discernment and guidance as we go through this agenda, Lord, that we do what's best for the citizens, the residents, the people of Pickens County. Dear God, we want to thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed upon us, dear Lord. We pray that you continue to bless us. Lord, we thank you for all that you have done, dear Lord. We ask that you be with those that are recovering from the hurricane, dear Lord. We ask that you continue to be with our troops, and Lord, we ask that you continue to be with our public servants. Lord, we thank you for all that you have done and all that you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Randy Van Dusen if he would please lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Van Dusen is our veteran of the month. Randy Van Dusen, U.S. Army, 1976 to 2002, Command Sergeant Major. Retired Randy Van Dusen is a retired aviation command sergeant major with over 24 years of active duty service with the U.S. Army. Sergeant Major Van Dusen entered active duty in January of '76 and completed basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. Sergeant Major Van Dusen then attended advanced training at Fort Virginia and joined the aviation branch as a helicopter maintenance technician and progressed to perform flight engineer aircrew duties on CH-47 Chinook helicopters. As a command sergeant, Major Randy Van Dusen served in multiple leadership positions at the battalion and brigade level and was the chief advisor to the command on all enlisted matters. At the corps level, Sergeant Major Van Dusen was the contract officer representative for multiple aviation maintenance contracts and responsible for tracking and coordinating logistical support to maintain operational fleet readiness rates to establish DA standards. Deployments included Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Operation Joint Endeavor, Bosnia, multiple tours in South Korea, Somalia. Command Sergeant Major Van Dusen received the Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, National Defense Service Medal, Good Conduct Medal, the Army Commendation Medal with Silver Oak Leaf Cluster, Korea Defense Service Medal, Meridius Service Medal with First Oak Leaf Cluster, Legion of Merit, Southwest Asia Service Medal, Kuwait Liberation Medal, and Expert Pistol and Rifle Badge. Mr. Van Dusen graduated from Vero Beach High and earned his degree in psychology from Tarleton State University while serving in the military. Mr. Van Dusen enjoys hunting, fishing, flying, and all 5 soon-to-be 6 grandchildren. Sergeant Major Van Dusen recently joined the Pickens County Veterans Affairs Office as a VA claims representative, assisting our veterans in our local community. Thank you for your service to not only our country, but to our county. We'll now hold our public forum. Note, this is a forum for the to give the public an opportunity to give feedback to council on issues you deem important. Madam Clerk, would you please call this first speaker? But before you do, I just want to remind everyone we do have a 3-minute time limit per speaker.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, I call Vicky Perez.
I just want to thank y'all for listening to me. And I talked to a lot of you guys last meeting, and I know we're all wanting to preserve Highway 11, and we all have our different reasons. Mine is, I was raised on Highway 11, and there was 5 of us kids, and we had a creek coming through the house, through the property. We would hunt, we would fish. My brother still lives there, and I'm going to inherit land there as well. And we're just wanting, you know, my family, it doesn't matter about how the value of the property or anything, we just want it to be preserved. We don't want to see big subdivisions or big commercial coming in, because we just want to be preserved, and I want my grandkids, great-grandkids, and so on to be able to enjoy what I did as far as being able to hunt, fish, in the streams and everything. I'd like for that to not be destroyed. But anyway, and you know, my sister had to help me a little bit with this, but she's right about the fact that, you know, Sunset side of Highway 11 and Table Rock side of Highway 11, you know, it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. My husband's from Texas, so he had flatlands. But you know, him and I were driving here, and you can see the mountains and everything all around Pickens, and I love driving back home and visiting and seeing the scenery, and I just really hate to see that destroyed. So while y'all were voting and deciding on what to do, you know, just, I'd love to see my family to be able to hand down generations what I grew up with. And I want to thank you.
Steve Anderson.
Good evening, gentlemen. I moved to South Carolina in the mid-1970s to go to school here, and I've been blessed in my career to be able to see some of the most beautiful places around the world, but I kept coming back here to South Carolina. I decided to retire here because of the beauty of the area here and of the people here. Back in 1962, when the state legislature designated State Highway 11 as the Cherokee Foothills Scenic Highway, they had to, and I quote, consider the scenic, cultural, historic, commercial, and economic significance of the road in the area. 60 years later, the city of Pickens proudly proclaims on its website that it is, quote, convenient to the Cherokee's Foothills National Scenic Highway, where numerous waterfalls and state parks, including Table Rock and Kiwi-Toxaway, attract visitors to the upstate of South Carolina. Now, I live on 9 Times Road, and I spend a great deal of my time driving with my girlfriend or my dog, whichever one feels like moving with me that day, in my little red convertible on the Cherokee's Foothills Scenic Highway. And as you cruise along this beautiful drive, you quickly notice 3 things: the trees, the quiet, and the peace. And then you cross the county line. Now, there isn't a big sign that says you're now leaving Pickens County. There doesn't need to be. The entire feeling changes, though. The trees are gone, the noise increases, and so does the stress. The Cherokee Foothills Scenic Highway becomes the Dollar General commercial corridor. To paraphrase Joni Mitchell, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a Bojangles, an Ingles, and another hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and they put up a parking lot. Is that what you want our Highway 11 to become? Is that what you want your legacy to be? Do not let commercial development turn the Cherokee's Foothills Scenic Highway here into another Oconee County. Keep Pickens County the paradise that future generations deserve. Thank you.
Elizabeth Myers.
Gentlemen, I attended the September 19th County Council Committee meeting regarding Highway 11. I listened closely to everything said, especially to the back and forth between Trey Whitehurst and Harry Wilson. Henry Wilson. I was astonished when the discussion shifted from protecting a corridor along Highway 11 to a discussion and then a plan to zone the top 20% of the county. They made this plan up there and then in the 11th hour of this 18-month process, and nothing like this has been studied, reported on, or presented to the public. County Council just passed a 10-year comprehensive plan that added a narrow Highway 11 corridor to the mix. County Council paid Appalachian Council of Government $7,500 and invested at least 18 months on reports, studies, and public meetings regarding the Highway 11 corridor. A 6-month moratorium on the construction along Highway 11 was passed to allow the council the time to finish up and pass a plan for the corridor. The council then voted to extend the moratorium 3 months along the same narrow corridor. At many of the ACOG meetings, a map was displayed of the corridor for the resident to see if their tract of land was inside or outside the corridor. The public was reassured the final plan would be a narrow corridor along Highway 11. ACOG wrote that in their final report and recommended a Highway 11 corridor, which was presented to the Planning Commission and approved. Citizens have now spoken at the last 4 council meetings, voting their objection to new manufacturing, new commercial businesses, new subdivisions inside the Highway 11 corridor. But at your committee meeting, instead of using that public input, reports, and recommendations made for a corridor, Mr. Whitehurst and Mr. Wilson ignored all that time, effort, and money spent on the corridor and concocted their own plan. It would have been nice if you had gotten involved and told us 18 months ago when this long process started. This is the first time the county council will zone anything, and this is how we are going to do it. It looks like the people were told one thing for 18 months, then at the last minute did something completely different. It is irresponsible. A broader area may be a good thing, maybe not. It has to be studied, and the public asked about it over a series of meetings. Gentlemen, we are in the 11th hour of this corridor plan. My advice is to pass a Highway 11 corridor, then that everyone has been talking about over a year now. Then consider doing something broader. Thank you.
That's fair.
Karen Martinez.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for everything you do. I know that we all come up here and we're talking a lot about what's going on around our neighborhood, and you've got many other things on your agenda. But, you know, a couple meetings ago, I heard you, Chris, say, we've been really thinking about this whole thing for 5 or 6 years. This has been on our plate for 5 or 6 years. And then it seems like if it's been on your radar for all that time, then why is now when everything is coming to the table to make decisions? For the last 5 or 6 years, my neighbors and I all have seen home after home being built. We've seen traffic on the roads in our area become much more constant. We've even seen a Dollar General built at the Pumpkin Town 4-way, which we never, ever thought that we would see. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing because, you know, I go there too. But something I know I already said that. Watching changes and talking about it and thinking about it doesn't help make policy to protect it. So what you've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years is maybe taking in a lot of information, but where is the answer? When are we going to get some kind of protection? So the question is really, do we preserve the area or do we let human nature take its course? Because human nature is going to be, people are going to sell to commercial, then somebody's going to have a commercial property next to them and they don't want to live there anymore, so they're going to sell to commercial, and the next thing you know, we're going to end up with pavement, parking lot, business, all the way down 11. And that is why we all keep coming to you and asking for some help, asking for that corridor to have some kind of policy set so that it can be preserved. So I'm all for protecting the entire area that was discussed at the September 19th meeting. I am, but I also think that it needs to be in 2 steps. I think that there needs to be a wider overlay for the rest of the watershed region, which is what that encompasses. But that Highway 11 corridor, which is what's been focused on for all this time, needs to have a higher level of protection, especially from the industry, which probably won't go up there, but you never do know. We do have an industry on 288, which isn't really very far. So, 11 is the main artery of this region. Everybody drives it, crosses it. We all live around it. It is what builds that region. That's why there are all the homes there are in the region. And we come there for peace. We come there for country. We come there to be in a rural setting, not to live along a highway of commercial businesses. Thank you guys so much.
Joel Smith.
Council members and residents of Pickens County. In 2009, my wife and I bought our first house on James Island, just outside of Charleston, South Carolina. It was a small home built in the 1950s in a little neighborhood that had beautiful views of the marsh. At the time, James Island was a quiet southern town with a Piggly Wiggly, a couple of locally owned restaurants, a golf course, and a county park. Only during the summer did it get busy with tourists heading to Folly Beach. The influx of people could be annoying, but to us locals, we understood the economic benefit that provided to the community. Fast forward almost a decade later, and our small town looked quite different. High-rise apartments, tract-built neighborhoods, fast food restaurants, and 7 grocery stores had been built on every square inch of real estate on James Island. Charleston County allowed this uncontrolled growth and irresponsible approval of developments to completely ruin what we had been trying to preserve. In 2018, my wife and I had enough. We left the low country and we headed to the mountains. We purchased a 5-acre lot in a small neighborhood off of Highway 11 near Table Rock and built our forever home. I urge you not to make the mistakes that Charleston and other local governments across the state have made in letting uncontrolled development ruin what we have in the mountains of Pickens County. Highway 11 is a designated state scenic highway and should remain as such. Any new industrial, commercial, or high-density residential development should be denied. Lands adjacent to the scenic highway should remain agricultural, recreational, and very, very low-density residential. Any new subdivisions of property should be limited to a minimum of 5 acres. Any development beyond this would negatively impact the highway's scenic beauty as well as our limited water well resources. All of that being said, I do feel that there is some economic benefit to allowing revitalization at the existing commercial areas along the corridor. Locally owned businesses such as Holly Springs Store, Aunt Sue's, the Pumpkin Town Mountain Opry, and Cindy's Cafe have long been a part of the scenic highway and our community. Properties at these very specific locations could be allowed to redevelop with similar type businesses such as craft breweries, sit-down restaurants, farmers markets, craft markets, and the like. The review and approval of any redevelopment, though, or revitalization at these specific locations should be only approved by a council, a separate council that is made up of citizens along the route. Common sense restrictions like these will ensure that Highway 11 is kept scenic and beautiful while also providing an economic benefit to the community. Thank you for your time.
Colleen Schumer.
I have lived off of the very beautiful and scenic Highway 11 in Pickens County for 15 years now, and truly she is the gem of the upstate. There is much discussion taking place related to what future growth or development along Highway 11 corridor should look like or not. Like most, I have a strong personal preference to what I'd like to see and not see take shape up there. But I also believe it's a serious thing to tell a landowner they're unable to sell or develop their land, as restricting land use effectively changes property values. We must be careful to guard against a willingness to impose ourselves on one another in this. That said, whatever we do now can't be undone for generations, if ever. Growth is coming. From what I've gathered, we are ahead of 5-year growth projections for Pickens County. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to influence how growth occurs in the coming years along Highway 11, but in a way that benefits all. Facade and signage restrictions, significant setback and frontage, roadside green space requirements, and more can work to balance future growth concerns with landowner rights while simultaneously stewarding the natural resources and preserving the mountain aesthetic we all enjoy. All of these considerations are important components of this multifaceted conversation. But the bottom line is we must do something to take intentional action that safeguards the landscape and at the same time landowner rights for generations to come. Switching gears, I recently began serving on the beautification committee here, and I'm now serving in capacity of chairwoman. I'm still getting my bearings, but recent consensus of committee members is to focus our efforts and energies on litter prevention, control, and education. We have several ideas in the works for future programs and opportunities. In the meantime, we wanted to inquire about the use of the pretrial intervention program. Is it being utilized for picking up litter in Pickens County? And also, what of the inmate litter work program? My understanding is that particular program was suspended with COVID, so when may it resume? A cursory look at counties around the U.S. that use inmates for litter pickup have seemingly significantly less litter than counties that don't. Lastly, I wanted to inquire about $75,000 given to Pickens County from a COVID fund for the purpose of litter pickup. The county was to use the money to pay civic organizations $250 a mile to pick up litter. This funding could clean up 300 miles of road here. From what I understand, only 140 miles was cleaned up. How may we resume this effort, or would it be helpful if the beautification committee got involved to recruit the nonprofits, so to take advantage of remaining money set aside for this purpose? Thank you all for your time and your consideration in these matters, and also for your willingness to serve our community in the ways that you do. We pray vision, discernment, and wisdom over all of you as you work to lead Pickens County into the best future possible. Thank you.
Charles Monroe.
Members of council, ladies and gentlemen, I am a property owner on Highway 11. I own 10 acres up there. A little bit about me. I'm former military, 15 years of civilian law enforcement, 25 years of counterterrorism work with Duke Energy Corporation, with Oconee Nuclear Station, to include adversary explosives work. I've been all over the world in short term. I've seen a lot of things, I've been in a lot of socioeconomic conditions. And what we're looking at for Highway 11 when uncontrolled, absolutely uncontrolled expansion, is wrong, and it's going to end badly for you. It's going to end badly for us. As far as my property, I'll do what I want to with my property, okay? I didn't buy that piece of property as an investment. I bought it as a home. I didn't invest in 10 acres and build a house to sell it to somebody else or a store and leave. That's my home. I don't agree with a commercial development on Highway 11. The infrastructure of the nature itself up there, it being the Illinois watershed, most all of us folks that live on Highway 11 live on a well. Most wells are rock strata wells. You start blasting, you start improving. I know my business about explosives. You're going to start cracking wells. You're going to start ruining wells and contaminating wells. The groundwater itself should be enough to put this to bed. My problem also with it is, why was we not informed of this a whole lot earlier? The first meeting at Holly Springs, the old Holly Springs Elementary School, I got that word of mouth. And I'll be quite honest with you, I was hot. I was hot. Something of this importance for these families up there. Some of these families have loaned land up there for years, and it pops up out of the ground. That's unacceptable. In any term, it's unacceptable. I would urge you, single-family residences and things, if somebody wants to come up there and buy a piece of land and build a house for them and their family, yes, sir, Ray, I'm all for that. But I don't want to see condominiums. I don't want to see housing developments. I don't want to see all the trash come in. I've been there and done that, folks. I've seen it painted gold, and it ain't gold. I'm a very well-educated man. I've been around this world 3 times. You don't want to do this, because it's not going to end well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Josh Malkin.
Good evening. My name is Josh Melkin. Appreciate the opportunity to be with all this evening. If you ask 3 lawyers a question, you're likely to get 9 different answers. This is because lawyers love arguing with themselves, but also because many laws are vague and reasonably open to various interpretations. The banning of books from school libraries is one area where the law is explicitly clear. Last week, when the Pickens County School Board voted to ban stamped racism, anti-racism, and you, and the perks of being a wallflower from school libraries, they ran markedly afoul of both the laws and the traditions of this country. The Supreme Court of the United States has been clear that censorship of books in school libraries is unconstitutional. The court held over 40 years ago that local school boards may not remove books from school library shelves simply because they dislike the ideas contained in these books. Again, quoting the court, the special characteristics of the school library make that environment especially appropriate for the recognition of the First Amendment rights of students. Just as access to ideas makes it possible for citizens generally to exercise their rights of free speech and press in a meaningful manner, such access prepares students for active and effective participation in a pluralistic, often contentious society in which they will soon be adult members. In light of the special role of the school library as a place where students may freely and voluntarily explore diverse topics, a school board decision to remove a book well after it had been placed in the school library evokes the question whether that action might not be an unconstitutional attempt to strangle the mind at its source. The school board also violated the First Amendment in its conduction of last Monday's meeting. If the government is going to censor citizens' speech, it must be content neutral. The board cannot filter speakers based on their viewpoint. It seemed 8 to 9 people were permitted to speak in favor of the ban, while those who attempted to speak against the ban never received a response. This is anything but content neutral and patently unconstitutional. I'm aware that this is not the governing body responsible for unconstitutional action. I will share my concerns with the school board as well. I wanted to bring this to your attention to alert you, as the faces of governance in Pickens County, that these actions are opening the county to open and shut lawsuits that the good tax-paying citizens of Pickens County will have to fund. I understand that some folks do not like these books. It is their right to voice this disdain. However, censoring ideas based on such critiques has been held to be unconstitutional. It is a direct attack on the foundations of our democracy and a dangerous step towards the dismantling of other constitutional rights and authoritarian rule. I thank you for your time.
Brittany Arciniega.
Good evening, members of council, fellow citizens of Pickens County. My name is Brittany Arciniega. I am a Pickens County landowner, a Pickens County business owner. I'm an attorney. I'm a mom of 2 young boys, and I'm talking to you in my capacity as all of those things, wearing all of those hats, in opposition to the book bans. One of the most important things that I try to teach my kids is empathy. We all know how political polarization looks. We have lived it. I'm sure in this room there are folks of different political ideologies, and we have seen the effects of polarization play out in increasingly scary and violent ways. The way to fix polarization is not to ban books that prevent our kids from learning empathy. My kid is not going to change his sexual orientation because of a book he checks out at the library. Instead, he's going to learn about people who are not like him. He's going to learn about people who come from different ways of life, people whose situations are different, people who may have 2 moms or 2 dads. And that is not a bad thing. That is not going to change who my son is, but it's going to teach him to love his neighbor. And loving your neighbor is something I think we all value in this classroom. I'm also an attorney, and I have studied the Constitution, and I have taught the Constitution as a professor at Furman University. I quit. I do not work there anymore. And so I'm not speaking in any capacity representing Furman. I'm now practicing law full-time. But I teach the Constitution, and like Josh said, banning books is unconstitutional. one of our most protected rights. The very first right in the Bill of Rights is the right to free speech. And free speech means the right for other people to say things that you don't agree with. There are books in the library that I don't agree with. There are books in the library that you don't agree with. That doesn't mean we take them off the shelves. Our job as parents is to teach our kids, to love our kids, regardless of what they may read in a book. Books are there to teach them empathy, to open their minds, to give them the marketplace of ideas. That is what the First Amendment is about. Strangling the marketplace of ideas by banning books is not the solution. It's not going to teach our kids empathy. It's not going to fix political polarization. So I urge you to not take the same steps that other bodies have taken, that other councils have taken, that school boards have taken, by intruding on the expertise of librarians, the expertise of teachers. Let's trust them, they're experts, and keep teaching our kids empathy and compassion.
Thank you.
Brad White.
Just an, excuse me, FYI, my name is Richard Sinkowski. I was standing here with Brad 5 minutes ago, and Brad had a fire alarm go off on his phone, and he asked me if I'd be kind enough to read his footnotes.
I don't know that I've ever come across this before, nor is it addressed in our rules.
Motion not to make up a rule on the spot, so let this guy speak.
I have a motion to allow this in a second. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Opposed? All right. Please, 3 minutes.
It'll be far shorter than that. My name is Rick Sinikowski. I'm a friend of Brad's. Unfortunately, as I just mentioned, he had an incident that reported a fire at his home, so we all hope all is well. Brad wanted to say that as a Republican, he would appreciate everyone's support here this evening as he's running for District 1 County Council. He also wanted to honor Ainsley for 8 years of service and to note his accomplishment for helping with the tie-breaking vote to help fund the new Student Success Center at Tri-County Tech. He wanted to make that clear. He also wanted to be very, very clear about his support for the protection of Highway 11. That he feels very strongly about no new manufacturing and no new commercial added to the byway. I've heard him speak on numerous occasions on this, and I believe that he's on the right path, and I hope that we all can come to that same conclusion. Brad also wanted to praise the county for joining Clemson in helping fund the new GPATS traffic study. And if he was elected to county council, that he would like to join the GPAT committee. And finally, he wanted to talk a bit about Restaurant Row on 123 and its congestion. And that he has a wealth of ideas that will bring to light some new designs in that regard. So that's basically a summation of what he had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lyndon Ellenberg.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm here to speak about Highway 11. We are 5th generation in ownership of property up there, maybe 6. I don't know how far it went back beyond my grandfather. But my main thing on the 19th was the 1,000 feet, I think it was. The 1,000 feet is 2 football fields plus 280 feet. And I think that's a bit of overreach, I really do. And then hearing these that don't want to put any big properties up there like a grocery store or a car, place that you buy your car, because they have some of those on the other side of the bridge. I'm all for that. I just think that 1,000 feet is too much. And I would hate to see that happen. I learned to swim in Kiwi River. I learned to hunt on Kiwi River. I learned to fish on Kiwi River. I love Kiwi. And so we got a lot of skin in the game in my family, and I don't want to see it go commercial either. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, that's the 30-minute mark. This concludes public forum.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item on tonight's agenda is the approval of minutes from the September 12th meeting. I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes you have before you.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. A second by Councilman Sada. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4 on tonight's agenda is the administrator's report. Mr. Roper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to update you on a few things that are going on this month. First is based on council's resolution of last month approving our participation in this NACO initiative for our veterans and service members entitled Operation Greenlight. You may notice when you leave that the flagpole will be illuminated with a green light tonight. We're going to have a green light on the county seal outside. Many of our county employees have green lights on their porches, and we encourage the public to do that as well, to let people know that in Pickens County, our veterans and service members can find a home here with us. We're going to be highlighting over the next few weeks many of our county employees, our valuable county employees at all levels, from department heads on down, who are veterans who served their country honorably and now are giving that good sense of public service also back to the county citizens. We're going to do that through the Operation Greenlight, highlighting several of these county's employees all the way up to Veterans Day. We're also about to announce, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we're going to do a veteran-specific job fair as a part of our Hiring Heroes initiative, which will be coming up. We're going to try to put that in a location the veterans will be comfortable going to rather than just having a job fair here. So we would ask you to look for that. That's a cooperative effort that's being planned right now by the county, by Alliance Pickens, by the WorkLink Board, Upstate Warrior Solutions, and the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. So look at information to come out about that. Where we show green light in Pickens County means go. Green light means go and come to us and apply for a job that we're ready to put your skills and your public service to work here in Pickens County. So look for more information on that. Solid waste update. You'll recall that as a result of the ad hoc committee, council approved funding for a second C&D shredder. Because our landfill was on the cutting edge of using this technology, and our solid waste director, Steve Range, was on the cutting edge, we have a good relationship with this vendor, and in these days of delays and supply chain issues, we're proud to announce that that's the shredder in our landfill, the second one. It's already here. So we were very pleased with how responsive that vendor was, and it's got to go through some shakedown, warranty-specific things here over the next couple of weeks, and then it'll be going into good use, helping us in our landfill. So I wanted to give you that good piece of news when it seems like every time I come and talk to you about equipment, I'm saying it's over budget, or it's going to take a few weeks, or we've got supply chain issues. This one was here within 10 days of your approval, so we were very pleased with that. Updating you on something that's specific to District 3, but it would impact the entire county, and that's the Haygood Mill Bridge replacement. The bridge over the Haygood Mill Creek there is one that is in a floodplain. It has some specific peculiarities that makes it harder to replace than the standard bridge packages you see us do. You've seen the videos that we've done. This one's going to involve driving some pilings down until they hit the bedrock, so it's going to take a little while. The folks at Haygood Mill were really cooperative with us in scheduling this. We made sure we scheduled it as best we could around things they had going on. But there's also a detour that will take you past the Haygood Mill on 178, and then you turn left on the next road up there, and it'll take you in the other way. So Haygood Mill's still open. It's still accessible. We've probably got about 6 weeks on this project to get this bridge replaced. The folks that are doing the piling, we're setting up today, so they'll start driving those piles in. But wanted to let the public know that Haygood Mill is still open. They're still going to have their events. You just kind of got to go around the block to get there now till this bridge is replaced. So I wanted to let you know about that. Final thing that I have scheduled to tell you about is that tax notices, many of them mailed out this week. And so people will be getting their tax notices in the mail. I've looked at my tax notice online to see it's already available online if you would like to look at that. But knowing that many people, when they get their tax notices, will have questions, I want to make sure that everyone knows that the county staff is here to answer those questions if you have them. Any way we can help you clear up a misunderstanding or maybe something that's not taxed correctly, or if you want to talk about the deadlines and those sorts of things, any way that we can help. I want to give you 3 numbers, and I'll just tell you for simplicity's sake, all 3 of these numbers are 898 numbers. So they're 898. But the county assessor's office is 898-5872. You can call them with questions through business hours. The county treasurer, 898-5883. And the county auditor, 898-5895. Depending on your specific question, you may need one of these offices or the other. If your question is more about when can I pay and how can I pay and the methods of payment you take, I would call the treasurer's office at 5883. If there's a question about how your tax was calculated, I would call the auditor at 5895. If it's a question about how your property was assessed, the value, I would call the assessor at 5872. So I just wanted to let everyone know that since those tax notices went out this week. You can check them online, and you can also contact us with any questions. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have prepared for you. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
So I have 3 questions following the public forum tonight regarding I do apologize, I forgot your name. I really am sorry, but Beautification Committee.
Ms. Schumer.
Thank you, Ms. Schumer. I do apologize. PTI.
Yes.
Inmates and the fund that was created from the COVID funds for litter pickup.
Okay, so starting in reverse order, there is still money available in that ARPA allocation you all made, and I think Ms. Schumer is in perfect position to do exactly what she's offering to do, to dredge up some more folks to take advantage of that funding. We ran through that, you'll remember, last summer and incentivized a lot of our nonprofits to pick up trash on our roadsides during the pandemic to help them out. So there is still money available for that, and we're very pleased that the Beautification Committee is willing to take on that to try to drum up some more support. So there is still money there. I don't have that figure tonight in front of me. As far as inmates goes, I talked last night with the chief, or not last night, last week with the chief deputy, Chief James, about this situation, and the sheriff's office is starting to see a little more flexibility there. I'll give you one piece of good news. At our Pickens County Animal Shelter, we've had an inmate assisting down at the animal shelter now for several weeks. So we've gotten one inmate that way. He tells me that we may have 2 or 3 more inmates available here in the coming weeks based on the workload they see and the amount of inmates we have. We also talked about ways that we could incentivize inmates. You'll recall from our previous discussions that it's a strange sort of free agency where the inmates get to choose what local facility they go to, the sentenced inmates. And so we've talked about things we could do with our weight room. We talked about things we could do in terms of weekly pay or monthly pay for these inmates. It's a token amount that would go into their canteen account. But I've authorized the sheriff's office from the county standpoint, from the budget standpoint, to move forward with those programs to try to get us inmates. If we end up paying an inmate $50 a month in their canteen and they're able to pick up litter or cut grass for us or do maintenance work, we're saving a ton of money. So you should see more news on that, and we're hoping to have more availability of inmates coming soon. We have good news from the sheriff's office on that front. And then finally, PTI, I talked with them 2 weeks ago, and what the folks with Teresa Mall, who's the director of the PTI office, we do have everything set up with them to where we can be a public service qualifying event if they pick up trash for the county, that would qualify for PTI public service hours. The way she explained it to me, and maybe I shouldn't quote her on this, I'll make it come across a little softer. She said, our biggest talent pool that would use PTI just got back into school about a month ago, and they haven't been through the court process enough. She's referring to some of our university students that take advantage of the PTI program a great deal. So it should be just now time for some of those to be working through and need to work out their public service hours for those minor things that a college student might stumble their way into.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Roper?
Mr. Roper, if you don't mind, could you give a little bit more detail about the incentives for the inmates? Because I wanted to be categorically clear that it's not a system that we manage, and it's not a system that we've created, and it's not an issue that we have anything to do with, so that folks will understand that we're not talking about paying folks. We're talking
Yes,
about
Dr. Wilson, thank you. And if that was unclear, I apologize, but thank you for recognizing that. South Carolina Department of Corrections has sentenced inmates throughout the state. And those sentenced inmates can come and work what people used to call trustees. They're sentenced inmates, they're near the end of their sentence, but they've got a couple years left. They can elect to go to different county facilities to do exactly the type of work we're talking about. But they get to select a top 3 of where they want to go. And quite frankly, they make that decision based on amenities. They're not going to go to a place that you stay locked in a little room all day. They're going to want to get out and get some fresh air, or perhaps get a little money in their canteen or something like that. So it's not a program we set up. It's not a program that we really manage. The only issue on our side would just be me authorizing the budget transfers, $50 at a time, if we get a good inmate that's willing to come here in Pickens County and work for us.
Can you confirm one last thing, please? Traditionally, we'd have seen something like this just for HVAC technicians and plumbers and the types of skilled hands that you'd like to bring in, and we've traditionally had this kind of folks. But now you're talking about this for folks that work at the landfill or litter pickup or whatnot. You're looking at that because we've got this big void in those kind of folks contributing to the community.
Yeah, this is an outflow from when we used to have a stockade. We used to have a ready supply of these types of workers, but once we built a new jail and all those stockade inmates went in that new jail, it created this void. But you're right, one of the best HVAC technicians the county's ever had was a sentenced inmate that worked with us. He was a good worker. So they do everything from cutting grass to cleaning up, to plumbing, to working with the sewer plant, a lot of different positions. But we're going to try to get a reasonable number of these folks here because it's such a savings to the taxpayer.
Any other questions for Mr. Roper? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Roper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 5 on tonight's agenda is the committee report. Committee of the Whole met on August 15th. Log number 191, provision of county employee health benefits for upcoming fiscal year. Councilman Henry Wilson made a motion to pursue the fully insured process as initially stated and see what final opportunities can be resolved in a negotiation process with our broker. Motion was seconded by Councilman Feimster. The motion carried 4-2 with Councilman Sada and Councilman Whitehurst opposed. No second is required as this comes as a recommendation from committee. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman.
I forgot who I was. So this is on whether we become self-insured or not, correct? And I believe that we should go towards becoming self-insured. We instructed Mr. Roper. This has been a year that we've been talking about this, and I want to hear you got y'all's thoughts on it. But I'm of the opinion that we still need to move forward with this, even though we get the numbers and we talk about there's a risk. I think there's a risk either way of going self-insured versus not. I do believe that if we truly go self-insured over time, we will save the county literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. But we haven't been provided with exact numbers to make that choice. So I guess I want to hear from you guys. I mean, I'm inclined to amend this to that we are going to, even if we're going to go with the same plan that we have for this year, that next year it becomes that we go down that process of being self-insured. We've got to quit talking about it and actually do it.
So I believe Vice Chairman Custer is seeking other feedback or comments.
Yeah.
I like the plan because we need to search out the possibilities that we have and not just keep on doing the same thing year after year. We need to try some new things as far as insurance.
Councilman Whitehurst.
As y'all know, I have been a voice for this for 6 years. Have studied it, have looked at it, examined it. 87% of all companies or organizations over 500 people are self-insured in this country. And there's a reason, because it makes sense. Unfortunately, the guys that we have doing this for us are not self-insured experts. They are fully insured experts. And what they presented us was fully insured. And they presented us a self-insured plan that was nothing but a fully insured plan where we paid the stopgap insurance. I know that's all technical, and I don't want to get into all that. We need to make a real effort to get a broker who specializes getting people to self-insured, not one that spent their entire life in the fully insured world to come to give us a plan that's supposed to look like one thing that I know, because I understand this, is not what it seems. I don't know that that's going to happen this cycle because of the time we've spent the whole year with these guys, and you know, it's now to the point it's very late for us to make a move. But if we're going to go self-insured, I would not vote to go self-insured with the current brokers we have, because they're not about being self-insured. And I'm nothing against them. That's their world is different. I'm going to be off of this council in December, and I hope this council will pursue. I know there's fear from the employee side. I know there's fear on Ken's side. There's apprehension, and every time you go into something new, there's apprehension. And everyone here has, you know, we all got in politics. That was new. That's apprehension. But we need to move this county a real direction there, not somebody coming up here giving us a watered down version. And so that's my feelings on it, and I'm hoping that you guys can move in that direction. I don't think it's going to happen before the end of the year, but if your idea is to go self-insured with these guys, it's nothing but a fully insured plan that you pay more for because you do the stopgap insurance, because it's run by the same people that run their stuff, and that's just my opinion on it.
Councilman Finster.
How long would it take to request for proposals and go through the procedure with that? Can we do that by the end of the year?
I think to your point that Councilman Whitehurst was just making, I don't think it's possible to have true and good and be up and running by the first of the year. I think that's somewhat of the fear, some of that, if I understood correctly what you were saying.
No, I think it can be done. It's going to take some effort. You basically have to put out a request for bid, but the problem is we can't use the same formulas that we used last time. You know, what we had was what's your experience. You know, we've got to be very specific to make sure that we get somebody whose experience is in transferring people from fully insured to self-insured. And I think the problem we come up with is writing the correct request for qualifications and having it done so that staff has a list of things that they go through and ask the questions, and they make a recommendation based on that because it's transparent. The problem is the list that they have doesn't correlate to what the needs are that we're looking for. And that's not so much their fault as it is our fault in helping them to ask the right questions. And that's where I think that staff will need guidance from this council. Now, whether we can do that in a month or two, I don't know. But my feeling is staff would be like, no, please don't make us do that. But here's the other thing, is that what you got to realize is when you sign up for insurance in January, you can change that anytime you want to. You have 30 days to cancel that insurance. And you can do it at any point you want to. And you can change brokers at any point you want to with a 30-day notification. So this fact we start in January doesn't mean we have to go through the following January. You have the ability to change that contract at any time you want to, and you can change your broker anytime you want to. They don't like you to know that, but that's the way that works. So if the fact we started it doesn't mean it has to be there for the whole year.
Any other comments or questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Based on Councilman Whitehurst's comments, I'd like to make a motion that we amend this to say that we're going to pursue a fully insured process as initially stated. Instead of saying, see what final opportunities can be resolved in negotiation. Well, of course, never mind. See what the final opportunities can be resolved in negotiation. But add to that and instruct administration to work towards hiring a broker who specializes in self-insured.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion on the table that adds instruct administration to hire a broker
who specializes in self-insured.
And self-insured.
Or transitioning fully to self-insured. Maybe it should say that.
You second that, Councilman Feimster?
Yes.
All right, any discussion on the amendment? Councilman Whitehurst.
I would, as a rule, vote against this because it's voting for being fully insured. But if y'all are going to say we're going to get somebody in here to fix this, I'll vote for it.
Well, this says, no, that's what I'm
exactly
saying.
Right.
It's in the motion now. You better hire somebody that does this.
I just ask you to hold their feet to the fire. And y'all know what you're looking for. So I commend you for that.
Any other conversation on the amendment? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. All right, back to the overall motion at hand as amended. Any other discussion or questions?
If you don't mind.
Dr. Wilson.
So it was my impression that the folks specialized in traditional insurance, like Trey had said, and I don't think that they would be the guys to take us in this different model. It's been my experience working in major corporations that, like he's right, most organizations of our scale, would be on the tipping point to going towards their own, to manage costs. There is a certain amount of chaos associated with transitioning every year with, when you're doing a la carte. The one thing I think that's not been mentioned yet that I believe is important is going into it next year would have been a gamble that we'd see lower costs. And we were, gambler's ruin is what Mr. Seda calls it. We were going to, there's a policy to insulate against that. It just appeared to me that the potential for a strong upside next year was going to be low based on a few things that Chris, that you've talked about and that they talked about. Over the last 2 years with COVID, folks have had a limited access to medical care. And so they've deferred services. And so looking at next year with folks getting caught up and experiencing the impact of not having adequate or complete medical care over the last couple of years could be an expensive year when folks get out there and they start to finally see the services. And like I said, if they've had something that's been ignored, that's significant. So to me, my inclination this year was to go towards it. As a small business owner, I mean, every day is risk for me. But as a steward of governance for this community, it didn't seem like it warrants the risk that we would have this year, and that if we're going to do it in a year that's more normal with respect to what the insurance community at large has to deal with on a regular basis. So I like what the motion that you just did. It seems there's a good reason to defer to next year. Clearly, most of us don't have the passion and vigor that Trey has had to put so much effort into this. But we all have our certain areas of passion with respect to it. I like the big grinders. You can carry the torch for the insurance stuff. But when it comes down to it, it didn't seem to me that this is the year to make this kind of a transition. And clearly, this makes a pretty strong message for you folks to go and sort of open the door to put the feelers out there from a purchasing perspective, which I don't want to reverse the purchasing activities. I don't want to interfere and step on your guys' toes. I have a job, let you guys do your job. The governance element of it this year is clearly we want to manage costs as well as possible.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sater.
There's really two issues here. The first thing you have to do is decide if you're going to stick with the cost plus system, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield. And their rates and their costs are going up about 22% next year. And the rates are just continuing to go up, and it's very expensive in the long run to go with a cost plus system like we have. Or you go the self-funded route. Once you decide if you're going to go the self-funded route, you put out an RFP and you hire a broker or an advisor that knows how to do a self-funded plan. I mean, I think it's an easy decision. If you look at the numbers of the insurance policy over the last 12 years, with no cost management, it supports the decision to go with a self-funded plan. The medical plan, the premiums were this and the costs were this, 9 out of 12 years. Twice it was actually in the red, and one time it was break even. That's with no cost management. So we would have made millions probably over, or saved millions, if we would have went the self-funded route. Jonathan came in and gave us some estimates, and he gave us a savings of at least $1.1 million in the self-insured route. What you do is you sell to a reinsurance company your maximum risk, so your chances of ruin become zero. If everybody gets sick and draws maximum on their plans, at some point you sell that risk away and somebody else takes it. I think, if we put in the right managers, I think we can have greater savings than $1 million, and I think we should pursue it. That's one of the reasons why I voted for it the first time, the self-insured route. I'm going to do that again here.
Any other concerns or questions? I think it's important to also mention that it's not just, while it is being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, it's also taking care of the folks that are part of the county team. I mean, that's ultimately what this is all about. We're discussing. So when we make those decisions, I know there's some angst amongst your team members or your employees, Mr. Roper. I'm aware of that. I know that they have concern because they don't know exactly what we're even talking about. All they know is they hear insurance and what are they about to do to my insurance. So I think that's important to manage at the exact same time. Any other concerns or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor as amended, please signify by raising your hand. And that's no opposed, that's unanimous. Thank you. Log number 205, an ordinance to establish standards and limitations on future development on the South Carolina Highway 11 scenic byway and matters related thereto. Councilman Whitehurst made a motion for this item to stay in committee and for staff to bring back the proposed changes in the ordinance to council. Motion was seconded by Councilman Wilson and carried 5-1 with Councilman Seda opposed. There is no action other than it staying in committee, so it's advisory only, I guess, at this point. Item 6 on tonight's agenda is council correspondence. The committee of the whole meeting will take place on Monday, October the 17th at 6 o'clock in the main conference room here in the admin building. The next council meeting will be held on Monday, November 7th at 6:30 here in council chambers. Are there any other correspondence that need to be announced? Hearing none, item 7 on tonight's agenda, motion period new business. This is the time for council members to make motions or bring forward new business. Are there any motions or new business at this time?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Costner.
I'd like to make a motion that we add to the agenda brief discussion on the Pinnacle Performers Program.
So I have a motion to add to the agenda a brief discussion on the Pinnacle Performers Program. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Dr. Wilson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous, so we'll add that to just prior to executive session tonight. Item 8 is a review of recommendations from the Rec Advisory Committee. You should all have that in your packet tonight, and I do not see. So, Mr. Roper, I will let you lead on this from the Advisory Committee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. These are a few items. Ms. Fowler could not be with us tonight, so I apologize. I know she presents this in a much better manner than I do. But there's a few leftover items from the previous questions that you had on the rec funding. And I think the three that we have there is the first one is the airport playground additional amenities. I believe that one's been to the rec funding advisory committee, and they had some further questions about the nature of the swing. But what they did seem to have a consensus around is that we add some type of swing that would enhance the regular swinging and the handicap swinging out there at the airport playground. So that's, I think, one that you have in front of you tonight from this report.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Costner.
I read through their recommendation is just not to do it, but I appreciate what they're saying, and had some conversations about it, and I do understand the concern on pinch points with this particular swing. However, we did have a lot of conversation about putting swings out there and including something different that a disabled person might be able to take advantage of from swinging that could be inclusive as for all of that. So my question is, I don't know whether I need to make this as a motion but I would like for the Recreation Department to, I would like for us to go back and do a request based on swings that would include an additional swing that could be used, that's not just where you lock down a wheelchair, but where we truly have a disabled, capable swing set. Because that's one of the reasons we began this process. And I know that they've already got some company funding to do the canopy over the top, which has been really good. There's been complaints about seating and the lack of swings from all the kids, but the park's being used really extensively. There always seems to be kids out there, and the Scoops has gone in right next door, I'm sure is benefiting from that as well. So how do I need to do that is what I'm asking. I'll ask you.
Well, I would think that it's still with the committee, and I can certainly have our staff take that information back to them, and we can work up from a staff level some alternatives. This was more just we like the idea of expanding it, but no to that. So we need to bring you back something you can actually vote for.
Okay.
I don't think it requires council action unless you want to take some.
Thank you.
So on the other, that's the airport playground amenities.
Yes, sir.
The Pickens County Admin Walking Trail. What was the recommendation there?
The recommendation was to fund that one. That was a request for $10,000 from the rec funds. And the idea there is, if you come up here during the daytime, the parking lot, when it's busy, and the number of walkers, we estimate we have 50 folks that walk at different times of the day around in our parking lot. And so what we wanted to do is to create a walking trail for them so they wouldn't be walking in the parking lot, but create a walking trail that would connect down below the Soil and Water Conservation District to the existing Anmed Cannon Trail, and by extension all the way to downtown Pickens. So we think it would be a good thing for people downtown and also our workers, so they could get out and be healthy. Mr. Whitehurst, this is right. I see you already nodding. Yes, exactly. This is what we're going to need to encourage, is more and more of this.
And then the Mile Creek Park day use picnic area improvements.
Yes, that's another request for $19,000, and basically what that would be is to put picnic tables in, redo some of the landscaping, upgrade the shelters. If you know the day use area, the shelters are probably one of the most neglected parts of the park. And so we thought that would be a good use of rec funding to encourage swimming and use of the Mile Creek Park day use area. That was also recommended by the committee.
And that'll be from the District 2 as a recommendation there, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's a total of $22,000 from District 3 and $19,000 from District 2, if I'm understanding correctly. Discussion.
I'm sorry?
On this.
I gotta see $10,000 for total funding request for the trail. Where's the other?
Mile Creek should be the next one underneath it, 19,000.
So if you keep flipping through.
He said 22. Where's that at?
To 19,000 here.
Yeah.
And then you said 10,000, that's 29,000, is that what you said?
It was, let's see, Pickens County Admin Walking Trail would have been 10,000 from District 3.
I misheard.
Haygood Mill Foundation would have been 12,000 from District 3. And Mild Creek would have been 19,000 from District 2.
Oh, the Hagen Mill thing, I'm sorry.
These just come as a recommendation. We would need a motion to take any action on these.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sada.
The MOU with the Haygood Mill was not clear. I remember we discussed that last year. It said the county would pay for repairs, and it also said the Haygood Mill would pay for repairs. So I made a motion last year for the county to pay for half of the cost for the bathroom at Haygood Mill. I think the county general fund should pay that rather than the rec department, because that was the motion that was made. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'll tell you, just in terms of the history, I don't see anything to dispute it. It's your decision, not mine, so I wouldn't say whether I agreed or not.
Well,
but I would tell you that the agreement was we would fix the underlying drainage issue, which we've done, and then we would split the cost of the floor. So what we're really waiting for from them, and I mean, the general fund would be where we would pay for it unless you directed us otherwise.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for an invoice from them so we can pay half of it.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to make a motion to accept all this, but instead of the 4,000 coming out of District 3's recreational fund, it should come out of the general fund as was stated in the motion I made last year and passed.
So I have a motion. You said 4,000?
Yeah, was it, how much?
I think we just said we would pay for half.
Okay, so pay for half. Okay, so what the cost, they're going to pay for half of the bathroom cost. We made a motion last year that the county government would pay for half of that. So if I thought I heard this was a $4,000 cost. Is that what they're asking?
Well,
so actually we need to back up, Mr. Roper. If you have what we have in our packet in the minutes, it does not mention, ironically, Haygood Mill at all.
No, it's just
From this last, you've got in your packet what
The
came
last
from the
page
rec
says Haygood
board,
Mill.
from the Haygood Mill.
I know, I was looking at the rec minutes from September 14th.
From our last meeting. I think what Mr. Sada is referring to is when this came up, and it's been almost a year ago, where we just agreed to pay for half of the repair for that floor. It was on them to get it done, and we were just going to reimburse them half the cost. I think what they've done now is come back and ask us to fund it through the rec fund.
But the rec, has the rec committee met on Haygood Mill? Because it's not in their minutes.
If it's not in their minutes, then, and I apologize, then they haven't. This may have come directly to them, to you. The rec fund.
their write-up doesn't appear to answer some of the questions in the regular questionnaire for fund applications.
Yeah, all I'm saying here is that we should pay for half of it. I don't have a problem with that, but I made a motion last year that that half would come from the general fund, not from the rec account of District 3.
So if we have that on the record, we don't need a new motion tonight for that.
And that's my understanding too, what he's saying is correct.
So are they asking us to pay for the whole thing in this?
It's what it appears to me, but they're also talking about the, I mean, I'm a little confused about their request, frankly, because it also seems like they're requesting for us to put some of the rec funds towards the door project.
They are. So let me just explain. There was $12,000 that Haygood Mill asked for another capital project for trails. And I remember at the time saying, and we talked about it, Ken, we have 3 outstanding projects that they just kind of wallowing at the Haygood Mill. We don't want to open up a 4th capital project. So I said no to that. I wasn't going to support that, that the county was going to work with Haygood Mill to finish up the bathroom, because that was a year ago, and they still hadn't finished it. The glamping sites, which the county put $25,000 towards, still not one of them had been started yet. And then the pavilion doors, which are funded for the state for $100,000 and just need some more money. They haven't even gotten the architectural plans drawn up yet to get that bid out and things like that. So I asked the administration to help with those 3 things and move that forward. And that's what they're working on. That extra $12,000, I said, hey, if we can put those towards the doors, that's fine. Now, they want to reach some of that $12,000 for this bathroom problem, but it's really already been paid for with that motion. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So just for clarification,
sense?
Councilman Seda has a motion on the table, and I apologize, Councilman Seda, I did not go for a second. That's on me, I do apologize. Councilman Seda has a motion on the table that we pay for half of the bathroom. out of general fund, which he also stated in his motion. We've already made this motion once.
Yes.
So that is the motion on the table, is that we pay for half of the bathroom out of general fund.
And everything else, whatever's in that recommendation that you talked about the the airport?
I would like to stay specific.
Just the one item? Okay.
I would like
thought you
this
were doing all
because.
Okay, let's do that.
So that is my motion on the table, but.
My motion.
Can I?
Yeah, I have a point of order question. If we've already voted on this, why are we voting on it again?
I don't think you have to, what Mr. Sate is referring to is, he and I have talked about this, and I've told him, without instruction from you all, when we get an invoice from Haygood Mill Foundation, we're going to pay half of that from the general fund, from our building maintenance budget.
The other point of order before you get the second is, we have said everything has to go through the recreation.
Yep, but I have a motion on the table.
Okay. Well,
so I'm being respectful to the motion on the table. Do I have a second for the motion on the table?
Discussion.
I think we have a point of order we have to correct before is the motion, because if we've already done this and it's already set to come out of general fund, we wouldn't need to make a motion to take it out of general fund.
But when you look at the request that's coming from the Haygood Mill, they would like to request funding of the $12,000 from the rec account to be used in the bathroom flooring.
Well,
now I don't want that to be mixed up, because that's not what
then
was
I think we
voted.
address that separately.
Yeah. I don't want that to be part of the motion thinking that's going to come from the rec fund.
No, I think this right here, I got a lot of questions.
But I have a motion that says we'll pay for half the bathroom floor out of the general fund.
You don't have a second.
But I don't have a second.
I'll second it.
So I feel better about discussing now.
Okay.
So to your point is, if it is policy of this council has set forth that half of that restroom fund is going to, or floor is going to be paid out of the general fund, we don't really need this motion, to your point. If we need it for clarity, we can make it for clarity, just to ensure that it's not coming out of the rec funds.
Yes, because they're requesting that, the Haygood Mill.
And also to your point, if this did not go through the advisory board who just met, there's an issue there as well. There's an issue there as well.
Additional point of order, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I thought we had talked about it being $4,000. This says 12. Is that scope creep?
And I apologize, Dr. Wilson, for interrupting, but my understanding on that is that they're wanting basically that block of money to go to all of these projects to the extent that the money would allow it. And it's not going to cover a lot of the projects, but they're thinking, well, it'll go to the floor, it'll go to the privet hedge they want removed, and the balance will go to the pavilion. Just to make it clear, because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about this, we've offered, just as the county, to provide free project management for the pavilion, and have met with the Haygood Mill folks and said, y'all don't have staff engineers, we do. Y'all don't have procurement officers, we do. So once they get the money ready, and once they have their plan ready on the pavilion doors, we're going to help them by managing that at no cost to them. So hopefully that's a way that we're going to save them some money. I just want to say that out loud, because I don't want there to be any confusion about that part.
Councilman Waters.
I got a few issues. This did not come to the rec committee, right? Okay, so if it didn't come through the rec committee, staff, it shouldn't be put in part of our stuff, okay?
I agree, because I misread that.
Because we're looking at this as being from the rec committee, so that's the first thing, is that this shouldn't be there. The second issue I have is that we've apparently been working on a bathroom for, is there something I'm missing?
She pointed out something. What happened is they submitted after the deadline. That's what happened.
I understand, but if they missed the deadline, then it's still got to go through the procedures of the rec committee per our rules.
With the exception of an emergency.
Right, but my other issue with this is we allocated funds for this bathroom a year ago. When did we finish the floor?
It's been some months back when we did our work on
So
the subfloor.
it just seems to me that
The drainage is what it was.
These particular guys here at Haygood Mill are having a hard time finishing any projects. And for us to, I know there's issues with getting labor. I mean, you deal with it, I deal with it, but it ain't a year okay, to get a floor done in the bathroom, and yet they come back with wanting money for something they've already been paid for. So, Mr. Roper, I would like, I don't know that I can, maybe it's something I can say from council, but these guys need some direction and maybe a stiff talking to.
Well, and that's,
am I speaking out of turn?
Mr. Whitehurst, that's why I said that we've offered to give them project management expertise. If I wanted to, as the county, put on a fiddling competition or a concert or do Frisbee golf, I would fail miserably about it. They know more about the cultural heritage of Pickens County than I'll ever know. But when it comes down to contract procurement or staff engineers, they don't have that. So we've offered to help them with that.
So to the point is, we haven't physically cut them a check unless they've given us an invoice for half. The motion on the table is that we pay for half of the bathroom floor out of the general fund. That was the motion on the table. And none of the other projects, and we've all made note of the other issues we had.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me just add something. So basically what happened was a year ago, there was a dispute, who was to fix the repair, who was to make the repair? Because the MOU would say, both were responsible.
Correct.
So I said, okay, let's just split the difference. County will pay for half, and Haygood Mill will pay for half. Haygood Mill got the problem under the floor fixed, but for some reason never got the floor fixed, with the floor you see. And that just languished a long time. I mean, we're still on the hook for half of that cost. And when I read this, like Trey said, I thought this came from the committee and was changing the source of how we were going to pay that. And I said, whoa, we already had a motion for that. But I agree with you. I mean, there's 3 projects that are outstanding that have just kind of languished there, and they wanted that 4th one. I said, no, guys, why don't we focus on this, and we'll send Ken down there with his experts to get these 3 projects finished. And that's what the process they're doing. Does that make sense?
So are we going to do this motion as just a clarification?
Yeah, because I thought this came from the committee. It didn't.
Right.
So it doesn't even need to be there.
Dr. Wilson.
But
So would the appropriate thing to do here from a parliamentary perspective would be to table this and let them go through the process? And we can table it with an indiscriminate timeline so that it just dies.
Dr. Wilson, I will tell you that I'm texting, which I shouldn't be doing, with Ms. Fowler live in this meeting because she could not be here tonight, so I'm disturbing her at home, which is not a good thing for your boss to do. But we'll gather more information and bring this back to you. That's the only way to resolve it.
So the motion on the table is that we stick with the original motion that will pay for half of the bathroom floor out of the general fund. That is the motion on the table for this one.
I'll just withdraw that because it's irrelevant. Like I said, I was under the mistaken belief that this, because it was in the packet, came from the rec committee and this was going to be part of the vote. I said, wait a second.
Okay.
So I'll just withdraw it if that's okay.
Councilman Seda is withdrawing his motion that was on the table.
Yep.
All right, so the other pieces at hand, we have the admin building walking trail, which would be District 3 for $10,000, and the Mile Creek project, which both come from the advisory committee. The Mile Creek project's $19,000 from District 2.
So, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Wilson.
The trail, that's all coming from District 3?
That was the recommendation from the advisory committee. I'm open to a motion for any of the above.
It benefits the staff
It benefits
and folks from across the county?
Absolutely, it does. It's just the building's physically located in District 3 is the only rationale for that.
Right.
I don't mind, Henry.
No, I think that if it's going to benefit the whole community plus the other folks, whatever, then could we take a third or $3,000 out of my area? Just the fitness thing of it certainly is going to be important as we start arguing about insurance.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion that the walking trail, third of it be funded from Councilman Wilson's district and the remainder be from Councilman Seda's district?
Yep.
And Councilman Seda, second that. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. And then the Mile Creek project at District 2. Any discussion or anyone have a motion there?
I think the same thing applies here. It's going to benefit the entire community. And in our area, we are, Croswell area and all the way up to just south of Dacusville is devoid of activities. So folks are going to be going out there, so I would think that it'd be appropriate to do 10% for my area.
I don't remember what my balance was.
Personally, I've been attempting to set money aside for future projects as the development kind of comes through my area. You know, but this is certainly going to benefit folks even though it's on the other side of the neighborhood. So 10% coming from Dacusville, or $2,000.
Well, no, District 2 is you,
so,
correct?
However, what I do want to make,
this is my district.
I'm fine with doing this, but then we got to be careful because, like the playground at the airport, it's in my district. I'm trying to fund it, but everybody's going to use it, and it's going to be true just about with everything that we do, unless it's something super specific, like I'm putting up a new field in the Liberty District, but then you've got all players from Easley that are going to play on it. So you got to be careful about, I think.
But I don't have proposals in my thing for significant activities, you know, to grow the recreational activities in our area. The Dacusville folks are doing some great things. They're building a wonderful park. I know that folks in my area are going to leave and go over there and be impacted by these in both areas, both of these projects in a productive way. I think that in a year where I don't have quite as much going on, you know, looking forward to the future where we can build some parks, I think that, you know, paying 10% towards this, particularly at Mile Creek, is appropriate. Not asking you guys to do that. I just think it's an equal share, right? I mean, most of the folks in my area are going to go to Pickens and Easley for recreational activities too, right? So they're benefiting from some of the things you guys are doing. So I think it's just an equal share piece of it for my very rural community.
Well, there is
Councilman Whitehurst.
I will say, this is in District 2. Mile Creek is in District 2.
Right.
This is a struggle for me because I have two cities that rely heavily on recreation funds, and some of their recreation departments wouldn't exist without our recreation funds. And I appreciate your offer to help out. But I'd like to know from staff, do you have, what is the account balance in my fund on this? Do you know? I know.
We're still arguing the last Hagen Mill point over here. I apologize for that. But so what's the question, Mr. Whitehurst?
I need to know how much I have available in my fund.
So the report that I have, your District 2, you have $72,000 available.
Now that's already been allocated. We've done allocations already this year.
Yeah, year-to-date expended is $47,831.
So I've got how much left?
You've got $72,000 and some change.
And that's not including what we just voted on, not only a month ago? So that's been taken out?
That's right.
All right. Any help I can get, I would appreciate. But,
if you want to make a motion, I'm going to go 10% too.
Okay. I'll accept that motion. Making 10% from here, 10%. If I got another 10%.
You got multiple motions going on at the same time.
Yeah. So, in all seriousness, it is District 2. If you want to make a motion, if not, I'll be more than happy to.
Go ahead. I'll appreciate it.
So I'll make a motion that we fund this out of 10% out of my district, 10% out of Dr. Wilson's district, and the remaining out of the District 2 rec funds.
I'll second it and appreciate the gesture.
Second. Any discussion there? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. And that covers all the topics there from the Rec Advisory Committee. Item number 9 is review of recommendations from the ATAX Committee. Mr. Roper.
Yes, I think we only have one recommendation from the ATAX Committee that's still pending with you all, and that was based on the money that was left over. County staff came up with needs at the Mile Creek campground, things that we know need to be done there. For example, we know that we have campsite number 87 or 67 is basically washing away through all the rains and the storms. We need some irrigation, some drainage pipe put in, some regrading and some more asphalt. campsite tie-in paving, and the nature trail project, which is about $18,000, is included this as well. Basically upgrades to Mile Creek Park that would be reinvesting the ATAX money that comes out of Mile Creek Park. So it's logical for us, and it's the amount that was left over after the other funding requests have been accomplished. So it's staff's recommendation, and the committee unanimously approved it.
I'll make the motion that we approve this $46,000 leftover ATAX funding to go towards Mile Creek Park repairs and nature trail.
Second.
Second by Dr. Wilson. Discussion.
I have one discussion.
Councilman Whitehurst.
I was up at our Long Shoals Park that we take care of. There are no trash cans up there.
There should be one or two. They may have walked off, but we're trying to encourage people to pack in and pack out, and we actually go and clean ourselves twice a week.
But putting some trash cans up in the parking lot area is what I think would be appropriate.
Okay.
There's none up there.
And I might be wrong about this, but I thought
I walked through and I started looking for them,
Yeah.
but there's no trash can.
We're trying to
People coming
encourage-
out, I agree that, but they got a place to put it when they come out.
Right. We'd gone too far the other way previously. There were trash cans everywhere, and so there's trash everywhere. And so we may have overcompensated. I'll check on that.
It just came on my brain, and I'd forget it otherwise, but since we're talking about parks, is that something you can do? or
Sure,
is that
absolutely.
something- Okay.
The same folks that take care of Mile Creek take care of that park as well, so we're talking about repairs and nature trails and those kinds of things.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr.
about
Sater.
that. This is about Long Shoals. Like 20,000 came out of District 3's rec fund for that. Are you finished with that project?
Yes, we are. There's one sign that's still got to go up, I think.
Okay.
One sign, but it's the big sign right as you're driving on the right. It's still, we just received that. It's been in the last week or two to be installed.
You did a very good job. Thank you.
It looks really good.
All right, so back to the $46,000 ATAX funding for the repairs at Mile Creek and the trails. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 10. Item number 10 tonight is an update from the library and library board and the library director. This time I will turn it over to you, ma'am. And ma'am.
So we have a lot of programs, a lot of projects going on at the library. There are a lot of issues that are being discussed locally that are important to the library. But I'm going to talk about 3 things tonight and try to get through this quickly and not rush. The first thing is PCLS Connect and the update we have with that. The second, our Digital Archives Lab. And the third are our library spaces.
There's no hope for the rest of us if they can't do it.
Oh, good gracious. 2 different things.
It's not moving. Our PCLS Connect project, we have our 4 physical library branches, and we identified 3 other locations. Right there. Yep. We identified 3 other locations on the map you can see to better serve and make it more convenient for people to use library services. One of those was in Pumpkin Town, one of those is Dacusville, and one of those is 6 Mile. We started out by putting book drops at all of those locations to make it easier for people to return their items. During this process, the Cliffs organization donated money for us to purchase an outreach vehicle, which we've been using a lot. It's intended to go wherever people gather, and it has been instrumental in programming in these locations. After we placed the book drops, we were able to partner with the Dacusville Library. They have such a great library, volunteer-run library. It made it easy for us to partner with them. So now you can pick up Pickens County Library System books at the Dacusville Library and then return them to the book drop at the Dacusville Library. They also have Pickens County Library System Wi-Fi hotspots for checkout at the Dacusville Library. And starting this week, we are starting story time programming at the Dacusville Library, where Pickens County Library staff will go out there and do story times at that library. So it's a great partnership. We're hoping to continue that with technology and with programming, hoping that they can piggyback on some of our history presentations that we do, authors and things like that. The biggest development in this PCLS Connect project, about 2 weeks ago, we held the grand opening for a remote locker system at the 6 Mile Town Hall. So this provides satellite library services to 6 Mile. We had the book drop out there already, but this is basically a locker system where you would put a book on hold, send it to 6 Mile, and then you go up to our locker, which is on the back side of Town Hall, scan your card, one of the containers pops open, you get your books, and then close it, and you have your book. So it's essential library services that are very convenient for the town of 6 Mile. And this was paid for through a competitive impact grant from the state library. So we've just opened that one. The second thing I want to talk about is our PCLS Digital Archives Lab. This is also something that we've been working on a while. We started investing resources and funds into this project to audit and organize what we had and make sure that everything was in archival boxes and it was stored properly and it was being handled properly. And we started to create policies and procedures so that everything that we had in our collection was handled properly and we weren't doing any damage. We've been using white gloves on everything that we touch. We had gotten a couple of small grants for some scanning devices and oral history recorders and things like that. But then we also received a larger grant through the state library as well to purchase a large book scanner. This is similar to a scanner that Clemson University has, but ours is newer. So it's a state-of-the-art scanning device that makes it more efficient and it's safer for the materials, and it produces incredible scans. Part of this project was that we not only scan our collection at the library, but we scan materials at the museum. We scan materials at the local museums like Easley, the Clayton Room at Southern Wesleyan, but there's so many collections around that people don't know about and haven't seen. So we're trying to scan as many items as we can and then make them available online through a searchable database so that people can look these things up and look at them. The reason we're doing this is because of items like this. So this was a recent donation by a resident who is a family member of William McWhorter, who is our Pickens County Medal of Honor, one of our Pickens County Medal of Honor winners from Liberty. This is a scrapbook of items, pictures from his family, pictures of him, and also very important artifacts. Go ahead. Including the letter from President Harry Truman awarding him the Medal of Honor. There's some pictures of him. Private First Class William McWhorter of Liberty was killed in action on December 5th, 1944 in the Philippines when a makeshift grenade was thrown at McWhorter and a fellow soldier. McWhorter grabbed it and covered it with his body. He was killed instantly when it detonated, saving the other soldier's life. And this was really impactful for me because you see their names on monuments and you know that we appreciate them. Getting this scrapbook, you get a feel and a sense of his family, his life, and what he sacrificed when he didn't get to come back to that life in Pickens County. So we have several pictures of him and several artifacts in that scrapbook that we hope to take care of and scan and make available to the public. Also included in that scrapbook is the Western Union telegram when his wife was notified that her husband had died. So there's, like I said, there's so many collections and photographs and things left to discover in Pickens County. Also a problem that we have, as well as these other collections, we have collections of photographs, and it'll be a box of photographs that says, very important family to Pickens County. We don't know who they are. I know in the Clayton Room there's a lot of photographs that people can't identify who are in them, and we're losing the people that can identify those people. So it's very important. It's why it's become a priority for us to help these other organizations and get our collection online as well so people can look at them, help us identify, help us find more information about these people. If you go online on our website, www.pcls.fyi, and click on Digital Archives under the History tab, you can see some of the collections that we have moved over to this new software system. And on some of those photographs, it will say, if you have any more information about this person or this business or this thing, please contact the library, so we can enter that metadata in so that it makes it a better record and more searchable. The third thing I wanted to talk about is library spaces. So we have all kinds of programming, amazing programming at the library, but also we have tons of reservable community spaces. In these pictures, we have people at a history presentation, people making art. There's Messy Munchkins, a children's program, and there's a picture down at the bottom right of people learning to shag. We had a class at the library. There were a lot of teenagers, all ages, everybody learning to shag, and then on the left there's a picture at Pickens of our yoga class. So in the fourth quarter of 2022, which is the last full quarter of statistics I have, we had 2,200 room reservations across the county, and we had 667 library programs in those rooms, for a total of over 2,800 room uses with programs and reservations. So you can understand that it gets hard to juggle our programming as well as the needs of the community to meet in library spaces. It's become increasingly hard as there's more participation, we get more people, and there's more, the community wants more meeting spaces. You'll go to the next one. So this is an example of our just past summer reading. On the right is a photograph at the Central Clemson Library. The space issues are across the entire library system. For this one, we've tried to mitigate it by partnering with other large spaces. 5 Point Easley has been a great partner. At the Central Clemson Library, for these shows, we try to set up a large screen in the main part of the library and then do a live video feed for people to gather in the main part of the library when our meeting room was full. But the Easley Library on the left, that was our first show at Easley. We had 2 shows that day. The first show, it's 180 people in that room. That's the max with no furniture. So 100 people came to that show. And we always, this past summer, we had to turn families and kids away from these programs because we were maxed out. But at that show, we also gave out, at the morning show, 180 tickets to the afternoon show. So we'd already maxed out our afternoon show at the morning show instead of turning people away. So we're experiencing space issues across all of the libraries, but at the Easley Library, we have a built-in solution. It's the only library with a built-in solution. If you'll go to the next one. So this is that evening show. We knew we were gonna have 180 people. We thought maybe we'll get around 250, something like that. We had almost 500 people at that afternoon show. And we made use of that expansion space area so that we would not have to turn people away. It was hot, but the kids loved it. And it's just really hard to turn people away from those programs. Not only do these rooms, the expansion space, serve as overflow areas, but they also allow us to have larger programs. This was the Orson Scott Card event. He is a well-known author. People came, that was a sold-out event. People came from all over the United States for that event to see him talk, and that was a partnership with Fiction Addiction in Greenville. These 2 events, on the left was a lunch and learn, where librarians from across the region, academic, public, and school librarians came to hear a lunch and learn. It was a professional lunch and learn that we hosted. And on the right, that's a local author, and we partnered with Poor Richards to host that event and bring her to the library. We also, I don't have a picture, but we also used that space for our Pokemon League, which is 50 to 80 kids, 80 plus kids sometimes, every Thursday at the library. They've outgrown our meeting room because they need a ton of tables to play on. So they have our biggest tables, and they have 12 plus tables. So that expansion space gives them a way to spread out upstairs. And our participation in these programs keep going. You're fine. So I was looking at Easley's Easley's website, their municipal website, just looking at the residential developments that were coming to Easley. And I'm a visual person, so I was trying to map it out because I knew there were two that were being developed really close to the library, one right across the street and then one at the old school. And those two are just, that's just 344 units for those two, but then you have all these others just in the city of Easley. That's what's coming. So that's when I think about what next summer reading is going to look like, and the next year, and the next year, and what we're going to do to try to handle the people who want to use the libraries within the spaces we have. Go ahead. So I've been looking through, in terms of budget things, I've been going back and looking, since we're not in crisis mode anymore with COVID, I've been going back and looking at all the minutes of previous library board meetings, minutes of council, and then their renovation projects, their building projects. And I pulled this from when the building project at Easley was beginning, their packages of information that they were sending out. And this was from, sort of paraphrased, from a council member and a board of trustees member from January of 2001. And I just really loved that it says, libraries are evolving into a living source of information for the entire population rather than simply a warehouse for books, as we have considered them through past generations. Our county and city population continues to increase, and I think becomes more sophisticated and more educated and wants better library support. We, as the keepers of that library, need to assure that our library system expands with this information explosion. And that's still true, over 20 years later. So it's not for really discussion or a vote or anything tonight, but just to keep that conversation going. I've given y'all some updates, pricing and how the economy is affecting a building project like this, to just keep the discussion going with the library board and work together to figure out a solution for our spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Any specific from any of the information shared with us tonight? Obviously, she did not come with a direct ask, but more of an update, and I do appreciate that. I think it's important for everyone to see what you've been able to do with minimal, but you need a plan to move forward, and you brought that update with you tonight, and I do appreciate that. But anything specific?
If you don't mind.
Dr. Wilson.
We had a meeting a year and a half or 2 years ago, something like that, and I asked to reduce your budget based on what I would like to have seen as a more strategic view of where you guys were going. It appears to me, feels to me, that you've pulled together that view. There's been some meaningful changes, I believe, in the board and the way that you guys are representing. I truly appreciate the fact that you're communicating the impact that you have so that we can better understand where that comes from. It's meaningful. And then from a political perspective, libraries where the First Amendment discussions happen, and if you look at how they happen, folks with one political belief system versus another tends to collide at the library, and the librarians tend to have to balance out those types of discussions. It's an important and meaningful place where you guys have to kind of cater to a broad array of folks, and we've seen some of that, right, with some of the discussions in the community. I appreciate what you guys did. I appreciate the effort that this represents across your entire board. I appreciate the incredible amount of progress that you've made when I visited versus the first few times that I visited, in the dialogue, the leadership, the focus, the strategy, the vision that you guys have had with your board. And I visited with you guys and walked right out into the Pokemon event, and my son went for years, and my mother took him in many cases and learned to play Pokemon. And my son would never admit that he played it, but he was completely passionate about it. And one of the things that you learn at the Pokemon event is when you walk in the door, they greet you like every church should. And they give you an immediate amount of support, and they help you through the process. And they hold your hand while you're learning. They welcome you every time. They know your name from the very beginning. And if you're looking for a place, if you're in a church that's losing membership, go to the Pokemon event and look at what they do. Look at the way that they reach out to the kids. It's impressive. It's incredible on every possible level. I've given this speech at at a very higher level in Toastmasters about how you outreach to people, and it's, the Pokemon, and so there's a culture of competition there that's just raw and 100% American, and then there's the culture of learning and teaching. So, and unfortunately, it was in that room that I don't know meets fire standards. And I would think that since it's one of the only places in the county where you can have an event of that scale, and you got to go up there and you got to give Pokemon a try, you're going to want to make fun of it until you go and you see how you feel when you're welcomed into that group. And we need to do something meaningful in that space. And I appreciate the fact that what I asked for, so I could support you, was a vision. And you pulled it all together in a way that really wasn't effectively represented when we had what was a regrettable, I think, political event around your funding for this program. You're right, the clock is ticking. I can see the numbers here, right? The clock is ticking from an inflationary perspective. And the clock is ticking for all those kids not to be in a room, with insulation hanging out of the walls. So, you need to come back to us with a plan for a build cycle, something that's impactful. And I appreciate just the incredible amount of effort that you folks have put into this. And I totally appreciate the fact that you're partnering with the good folks in Dacusville who built a library from scratch that would be just state-of-the-art 1977. And you guys, and you can look at the books, right? It's book sales and whatnot. I bought a big box of the books and immediately chunked them just for the sake of helping to finance it. Mm-hmm. What you guys are doing up there and taking the services to Dacusville, particularly the internet access, it's kind of hard. There's poverty all across the county. It's kind of hard to put into full words the impact that it has. But I talk to the kids and I talk to the parents. And, if you're a parent that can't afford internet or just can't get it in your location, and then you've got this Wi-Fi from the library, you know what that means? It's just incredible. We had no service and support from the library as they were building it, and you guys have reversed that in a way I think is meaningful to the two folks that are from Dacusville that are on your board. And I just categorically and completely appreciate that.
Thank you.
And kind of to Dr. Wilson's point, it was actually very informative for me that I'd heard that's a 50-year building in Easley. I believe it was a 50-year building, like we like to tout. But that only is a 50-year building when you build it out completely, which it is not.
We're at 20.
We're at year 20, 21, somewhere in a 20-year building. So the time is past for that growth and planning, and it's because of some misinformation or misunderstanding, I'll call it misunderstanding, that is out there. So you being an advocate to the point you have, I think has been very important, and I thank you for that. Any direct question, discussion? Mr. Feimster.
I saw all those people in there, and being the guy who works with air conditioning sometimes, it reminded me of the 300 watts of heat that each one of those people put out, and that's the reason that we were so hot, because the air conditioning unit was not designed for that many people.
Yeah, we have no air conditioning in that space. And so we were pumping air in there with fans and things and thought we'd be okay because it was only 80-ish that day. But when all of those people showed up, it got hot very quickly.
Wait, can we be clear on this? It was middle schoolers in an un-air conditioned room on Pokemon Day. If you guys have ever met a middle schooler, you understand where I'm coming from. We need to do something about the air conditioning thing.
We're very aware of that as
well. So I do have a question for you, and this is something you can send back or whatever, or what have you. Amongst our other discussion, I know that Easley is just one of the many branches that you have. And you have a board that is over the library system, the way the home rule sets it all up, and we seat that board, and we have board members here tonight, and we have board members that never miss a meeting, and we thank you for that as well. But in all honesty, do you have a priority list? Do you have a list? Does the board have a list of, we know we need this in Central, or we need this in Pickens, or we need this, because your pot of money is only so big, your reserve fund is only so big. We hear that you need air conditioning, but are there other things that are more pressing and important? So I guess that's what I'm asking. Does that exist? And if so, can we get that?
We do have a list. I think we've identified, the board and myself and admin have identified that the best, most impactful thing to tackle first is this space, because it already exists. We need space in Clemson, but there's nowhere to go right now.
So like some of the handicap accessibility things that we talked about in Pickens.
We fixed those.
Okay.
Pickens, that has been cleared up. Anything on that caliber under the $10,000 range we looked at and fixed.
Okay.
That was one of the main things. But as far as big picture priority things, the easily expansion spaces first, and then we go down from there. Pickens, Liberty, Clemson. All of those buildings are aging, and we're very aware of that. And then the use is changing. Everybody needs more space.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
I would like to see an alternative plan, one that actually looks at taking that money and spreading it to all the branches. If that was the task, how would you spend it? I'm not asking now. I would just like to see that alternative.
Okay.
That's something for your board.
You know, you have issues with roofing and you have issues with ACs. It's all expensive stuff. I mean, the Pickens branch looks like a funeral home still. So, I mean, I think there's plenty of things that could be done in other areas. I'd just like to see that as an alternative plan by the board.
Okay. We can do that.
Anything else? Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Item number 11 on tonight's agenda is the consideration of a budget amendment for the Registration and Elections Office. If you gentlemen that have been on council for a little while will remember back in
2020, Mr. Chairman.
2020, the previous,
it's just one previous, but
okay. Elections director came and it was all about the new machines coming from the state. The one thing that the county was going to be responsible for in order for us to receive these machines was going to be the service contract for these machines. And at that time, I actually questioned Mr. Roper on, whether we can bind a future council. It's not really binding the future council, but there was discussion around that, and we did vote to move forward with that. Through the process of elections official changeover, et cetera, it did not make it to the budget this year to approve that $14,000 service contract. So tonight, that is the reason it is on the agenda as a budget amendment. So I will make the motion, just like I did back then, that we approve this service contract in the budget.
Second.
Second by Dr. Wilson. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Was that a good summation? Yes. Item 12, consideration of resolution 2022-26, recognizing October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I ask for a motion and a second. I have a motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vice Chairman Costner. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 13, consideration of resolution 2022-27, declaring October 2022 as First Responder Month in Pickens County. I ask for a motion and a second to consider resolution 2022-27.
Motion.
Motion by Vice Chairman. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Feimster. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Item 14 on tonight's agenda, third reading of ordinance number 619 that provides for standards and procedures for devolving surplus county real property related to the more accurate and efficient operation of the county road system. I ask for a motion and a second to constitute third reading of ordinance number 619. So moved. I have a motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Wilson. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sato.
I'm actually going to vote against this, and I'll explain why. If there's a dispute of who actually owns the road, the county makes a unilateral decision to give that road to the owners. It says to the owners, now you maintain it. There's going to be a lot of complaints. And anything short of the council approving the list of those roads that would be put back to owners, I am going to vote no on this plan.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman.
I have a question. I thought it was explained to us that the owner was given the opportunity, but it was not forced upon them.
It's if they make application to us, or if we find a piece of property and we go and approach them, we're not going to force it on anybody. This is going to be more of a cleaning up our system and trying to help the citizens out is the idea. of this ordinance.
So,
Well, let's say
So
that,
is it, gentlemen, Councilman Waters.
ask Mr. Seda, where did you?
well,
Where did you
maybe
see
I
this?
misunderstood
Mr.
that.
Sada.
So you're saying there's a road that has 10 owners on it, and they don't all agree, the road's not going to be put back to them?
It's not really intended for that situation. And what it's intended for is for subdivision plats that get recorded at the registered deeds office, and it shows a little stub or a little corner or a little 200-yard path that it says on the plat is a county road, but it never got built by the developer. Well, people will say, look, either build the road or don't, but give me my land back if you're not going to do it. You know, so that situation happens, or if there's
So to my question,
Yeah.
there's 3 owners on that road. Now, what are you required to, whose permission are you required to get to put that back to them?
well, it's going to be very fact specific. It's going to come down to what 3 owners, where are they on the road? You know, let's say you got 2 guys at the end who agree they want their property. Then I would be wanting to have a mechanism to give them their property.
Okay, and what about the guy in the front that doesn't want to do
If
it?
he doesn't want it, I'm not going to force it on him. That's not the, I don't think this is.
So that
gives a-
road, some of it will be given back to the owners and some of it won't?
Yeah. I think it's going to be very fact specific. But I'll tell you, it's a situation that comes up. It's not usually that situation, though. The situation we get is where we just have little inconsistencies in the county road system, and it creates problems for people year over year over year. The easiest thing in the world to do would be to just deed it back to Farmer John and move on. So that's what we're really looking to do with this ordinance. What you're speaking to, I think, is the next step in the process where we talk about what is the county road system. And that's something Mr. Hendricks is giving you advice on that's separate from this.
I don't know.
So,
The way I read the ordinance, I saw it a little different, but that's okay.
The other point I do want to make, kind of to your point, is after the second reading, you did amend A4, reporting proposed action to council. So the administrator would do that prior to executing that quitclaim deed, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, yes, and also, this not be construed.
That's right.
The city being able to pass property to us.
Right.
Yeah, and that's cleaned up nicely, I think. At least it's in there some way, shape, or form. I'm fine with it.
Other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Item 15 on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda. I have county constables and certification process to the committee of the whole. I ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Who was my motion? I apologize.
I made it.
Councilman Sada, and then second by Dr. Wilson. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Item 16A is what I'm going to label it. Will be the Pinnacle Performer Program as added unanimously to the agenda tonight.
So,
Vice
Mr.
Chairman.
Mr. Roper, we had originally designed that program to, of course, recognize those employees that are a part of the county in doing something exemplary. In other words, they're come up with an innovative way to save the taxpayer money, or they have they've gone above and beyond what's expected. And you guys have done a great job with acknowledging that. A second component of that program when we originally created it was to have something along the lines of a citizen type award that still follow the same guidelines, but, and if I remember correctly, Councilman Whitehurst said, yeah, but this isn't something we give out every week. This is something when somebody goes way above and beyond that's noticed countywide. And we've never really implemented that, and I wanted to ask about that and to see if there, I mean, I have a couple of people I'd like to nominate for that, or what the process is.
And I appreciate that because I remember that conversation. My impression from that was that council, you know, if somebody brought a citizen forward that council wanted to bestow that honor on, I've limited myself just to my staff because we get nominations and we have a process of vetting them and everything else. I have not felt comfortable bringing you all a citizen nomination.
So, so that I'm not, you know, calling people out by name, would this be something that we would do an executive session?
I would think so, or you could ask, you could informally ask us to research someone and see if it's appropriate. You know, we would want to vet it a little bit before we give such a high honor. But we don't really have any standard for a citizen area without y'all giving us that standard.
So you think that we as a council should come up with those standards, or can you come up with recommendations?
Whichever way you would prefer.
I'd prefer you guys come up with recommendations.
Okay.
rather than the six of us try to figure out how we're going to agree on something. And then
Glad to do that.
perhaps we can talk about that. I'd like to make a motion to add it to executive next meeting so that we could talk about a couple of, or at least one person that I'd like to nominate.
I have a motion that we add Pinnacle performer to executive at the next meeting. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Pinkston. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on Pinnacle performer? Thank you, Vice Chairman. Item 16B on our agenda tonight is going to be executive session, and we will go to executive session for boards and commissions, specifically the Beautification Committee, Economic Development for Project Farmhouse and Project Smaller Dog. Do I have a motion and a second that we go to executive session for these items? I have a motion by Councilman Feimster, second by Councilman Whitehurst. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. We'll retire to executive session after a brief recess. Thank you.
Yeah.